Alors avant de démarrer le débat, où on va parler de choses très concrètes, très pragmatiques sur comment cette série a été initiée, comment elle se fabrique, comment elle se fait, on parlera aussi un petit peu du paysage anglais, quelles sont les chaînes, qu'est-ce qu'elles produisent, etc., pour avoir un petit peu une image de l'Angleterre en ce moment, pour qu'on puisse un peu comparer avec notre pays. Mais d'abord, on va vous remontrer la bande-annonce qui a été diffusée hier, qui résume un peu la saison 1 de la série, puis la saison 1 donc, a été diffusée en Angleterre l'année dernière. Et on a vu hier l'épisode 1 de la saison 2. Donc on ne s'assoit pas parce que je ne vous ouvrirai rien. Donc on montre la bande-annonce et ensuite on attaque le débat. Merci. Je vais poser des questions en anglais. Je pense que vous avez des traducteurs. Parce que si je les pose en français, c'est un peu plus long dans le débat parce qu'il faut que eux aient la traduction. Donc je vais les poser en anglais. Donc ça va être un débat relativement en anglais. Et voilà, ceux qui ne comprennent pas trop, prenez des yeah, before we talk about the series, I would like you to give us a little overview of the English market as of today, in terms of how many channels. We know them, but it's kind of blurry.
Okay, let's start. I actually did a little bit of research. I thought that would be quite useful. Some numbers first thing in the morning, but the total. I'll just read these out. The total spend. By all the public service channels in the UK, which are all the BBC channels, BBC 1, 2, 3 or 4, ITV 1, Channel 4 and Channel 5, on original first-run drama, including soaps in 2011, in peak time, which in peak in the UK is I think 6:30 till 10:30, was £500 million, and that doesn't include Sky. Sky is not a public service channel. So they're just starting to get into drama in a big way, and they've committed to spend, I don't know, about £600 million on original programming by 2014. So I don't know how much that is drama.
I was asking you earlier that BBC has no commercials day or evening at all. Just
no
funded, state-funded channel.
Correct. Like, yeah, from a license fee.
About 3 billion. About 3 billion from the license fee. £3 billion a year. BBC. It's funded.
To finance the whole BBC channel.
Yes, everything.
And radio as well, and news, everything.
I think they spent about £800 million on BBC One, I think, or on it, anyway. They made, in peak time, BBC made about 250 hours of drama, excluding the soaps. BBC Two made about 32 hours. ITV made about, similar to BBC, about 200 and 250 hours, excluding the soaps, and Channel 4, 155 hours. So the main channels that commission drama in the UK, BBC One are the biggest. We've got BBC Two, BBC Three do 1 or 2 series a year, but not very much, and BBC Four stopped now commissioning any drama at all. ITV One is also a big drama producer.
Is it bigger in terms of number of hours than BBC One, or
Similar?
Similar.
Yeah, about the same.
In terms of ratings, which means success of the series, is that competition, or is ITV as a private channel sometime above?
They're very competitive. Although the BBC say they're not particularly ratings driven, they are ratings driven, and they both play their schedules against each other very competitively. So for drama producers, it's very difficult in the UK because you never get to know when your show's actually going to go out until about 2 weeks before, because they keep their schedules very secret. BBC One and ITV One particularly. So that, and they have a weird system. I don't know if it's the same anywhere else, but they actually swap. They tell each other their schedules about a week or 2 weeks before it actually goes out. Up to that point, it's all about what do they think, what do they know. It's a weird process.
BBC for us, and for the whole world, has always been an example of a public channel, financed by the state, and having such great programs in terms of fiction or documentaries.
Yeah.
But you compare the program on BBC One and Two and ITV are very different. Do you feel like you could see just watching them if they are for ITV or BBC, or not really?
Yeah, I think more and more so they're becoming much more distinct. So it never used to be, I think, I don't know if you agree with this, that ITV1, BBC1, you could take a show and it would go from what, but they're now got quite a distinct look and a distinct feel. ITV1 and BBC1 are the most similar. Channel 4 is very different. Sky, I think, has got its own feel and look as well now. So there is a diverse population of different dramas for different channels, and we as producers have to be very clear. The shows do move between channels. We develop stuff for a lot of our shows. Actually, we develop for one channel and been turned down, and we take it to another channel, we change it, and you tweak it. So there has been a lot of history of that happening. I think it's probably becoming slightly less common because they are becoming a bit more distinct, and they don't, they often say, well, that's not a show for us, it's a show that's developed for somebody else. But you can do it. I mean, we've done it recently on a couple of projects.
And on your networks, are in the place of the American series really big, like we have in France, or not that much?
Nothing in prime time on BBC One, ITV1, Channel 4 will, Channel 5.
No American series on prime time on
No, hardly any acquisitions on BBC One.
No, I know the acquisition, but do they run them on prime time?
No.
So in the daytime or late night?
On BBC One, hardly any at all. ITV1, I can't think of any, after 10:30 at night. But Channel 4 do quite a lot, Sky do a lot, and Channel 5 do loads. Channel 5 does Law and Order, CSI, House, and lots of Sky One do a lot of acquisitions.
I mean, with the original programming hours, I know that you quoted them, but we've got excluding the soaps, in terms of original series or original drama aired, we have 348 hours on BBC One, about 42 hours on BBC Two, about 40 hours on Channel 4, and 240 hours on ITV1. So this is all original drama. This is that's not including the soaps, the Coronation Street, EastEnders, these shows that air often 4 times a week.
There's a lot of opportunity. There's a lot.
A total of a lot of hours, about 1,000 hours, right?
About 1,000 hours. Yeah.
Which is more than France, where I think we have 750 hours, if I'm correct about the numbers.
The other interesting thing is the BBC last year, between July and July 2011, June 2012, the BBC launched 17 new drama titles. BBC Two did 8, Channel 4 did 4, ITV1 did 6, and Sky 1 did 4. But Sky will be the big mover in this over the next few years, and they're going to compete with BBC and ITV.
So do you feel the market is growing in terms of fiction, like the number of hours is a little more every year?
There's a resurgence at the moment in drama. There's some big ratings successes which you might know about, but Downton Abbey, Paul the Midwife, these are massive 10 million viewers, 45%, 50% shares. They're event television. It's unusual, that doesn't happen very often, but at the moment they have these big tentpole dramas that are the equivalent of Pop Idol, the X Factor, and they define the channel. So there is a real desire, and also it seems like it is everywhere actually, I think. In America as well, in the cable market in America, there's all these other channels, A&E, that are just going back into original drama, History Channel. These channels that don't historically do drama programs, it's too expensive or whatever, but a lot of it's driven from AMC turning around its whole channel with Mad Men and Walking Dead and these sorts of shows. Everyone thinks drama's the place to be, and it's great to be a drama producer or writer or whatever you are in drama at the moment. I think it's a really
I agree, it's a very
healthy time.
It's a very healthy time, and also I should just add that Channel 4 had been spending a lot of money on Big Brother over a period of years, and when they decided to stop Big Brother, that released a lot of money into the drama budget. Yeah.
So it's a growing market, which is very interesting for writers and producers. Just a detailed question. On BBC, for example, 1 or 2, do you have evenings for specific fiction? Like in France, we have on TF1, we have Mondays is comedy, Thursday is cop show. On France, there is something else. Do you have also this kind of scheduling, or it changes?
No, we don't have fixed time. We have drama usually on a Monday, Tuesday, and a Thursday on BBC One, and at 9 o'clock on Sunday. It moves when football comes in. The sports events will move. Things will get moved about a bit. But we don't have like every Monday's crime night. No, it could be anything.
So it could be anything.
It could be any type of drama. The big ones are Monday and Tuesday. The big new launches, the big scale series are usually on a Monday and Tuesday on BBC One, and the same on ITV. Sunday night's a big night now for drama. It never used to be, but now it's a really...
I think there are certain things that you can say that costume drama often plays on a Sunday night.
Yeah.
That they often keep Saturday night free for family drama. They play Doctor Who, Merlin, the shows that the whole family can watch on a Saturday evening. There's very rarely drama on Friday night. Occasionally you get a few shows, but it's nearly always Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday.
Okay, so the hour was on what day was it shown?
It was a Tuesday, yeah.
Tuesday. And the first season was 12 episodes also? 6. So now you're going to 12 for season 2.
No, 6 and 6.
6 and
6
6.
and
Oh,
6.
so at the end
It was just
12.
6 total. Total
2
12.
seasons.
Total 12 for sales internationally. That's why it was 12.
So going down to more precise Kudos Film, tell us a little bit about this company. I know it's part of the Shine group, which is not a big group. So how long does it exist? Tell me a little more about this.
So it's 20 years old this year, Kudos. But we used to be a multi-genre production company. We did a bit of everything from fishing programs to cookery programs. But we became a drama specialist in 2000, so 12 years we just do only drama. And we had a very big success with the first big drama we did, which was called Spooks, and followed very quickly by a show called Hustle, which is like con men, and then we followed that with a show called Life on Mars. And those 3 shows, you know, for whatever reason, became massive successes. So very quickly we became very established as a drama specialist, and those shows lasted quite a long time. Spooks we did 10 seasons, and Hustle we did 8 seasons.
There were 6 episodes each time.
There were the other thing to say about the UK is it's anywhere between 6 and 10 episodes, but normally you start with 6 and you might go to 8 or 10. Spooks was 10 for most of its run. Hustle was always 6 episodes in a series.
Do you have in England some shows, maybe not in your company, but in other companies that run 23 shows a year, like the Etude in America?
No.
Why that? Is it because making them is difficult, or?
Well, part of it is because the broadcasters, the BBC, ITV particularly, they like diversity of output. So they'd rather have 4 6-episode series than one series of 24 episodes, for example. So they like to serve different parts of the audience, and they also, I think they have trouble scheduling through 13 episodes. Like in America, you have 13 episodes in a season that starts in September and finishes at Christmas. We have shows that will be stripped across a week, which will block out a week or 2 weeks. I'm a Celebrity, Get Me Out Here on ITV runs in October, 2 weeks. So you couldn't run things through that long. So we make Law and Order, the remake of Law and Order for ITV1. We make 13 episodes in a season, and ITV split it. They put 6 out, and then they put another 7 out later on in the year. So they never run it through.
So it means you don't feel the desire from the networks to have long-running shows like we do in France, you know. The networks would like to establish shows that would last 12 or 20 episodes. No. You don't have this desire because you feel that networks want to diversify.
Well, that's only BBC One and ITV One. They don't, and the BBC Two as well. Channel 4 do longer runs. If something's a success, they do a show called Shameless. I think they do probably 20 episodes. It's more like a soap, but they do about 20 episodes of that. Sky is an interesting player because they will do 13 episode runs, or 10. They'll start with 10, go to 13. And on their comedies, their sitcoms, they might do a first season of 6, and if it works, they'll go straight to 13 in the second season. And then the third season, they're even talking going up to 20. So they are a much more nimble commissioner, and they can do whatever feels right for them, because they're a pay TV channel like Canal Plus. They're not driven by ratings; they're just driven by quality, and they want to serve.
Some kind of returns of the viewers. Also.
Pardon?
Some they also feel by the returns.
They are, but they're more focused on retaining the subscriptions of their customers. They call them customers rather than viewers. But they're a really exciting addition to the drama and comedy world. They had no comedies about 18 months ago. Now they've got about 6 or 7 series. I mean, it's literally from nowhere. They've really turned the whole thing around in a very short space of time, which is great for the drama and comedy producing community.
Is that company Kudos a big company? How many people? What is the staff?
We've got 32 people. We make about 50 hours of primetime drama a year over the last sort of 4 or 5 years. We're pretty similar. And we've got, I think, 7 series in production at the moment. Quite a lot of new things because Books and Hustle, Ashes to Ashes, big shows all finished. So we've got a whole lot of new stuff coming through. So.
And tell us about your relationship with Shine as a group. How do you?
We were an independent company until 2006, and at 2006 we thought it was the right time to sort of try and become part of a bigger organisation to give us a bit more of a global reach. And so we sold ourselves to, and we had a number of people after us, and we decided we wanted to go with Shine. So we sold to Shine. At that time, Shine was a very small company. It was just Shine Television. It was one company, and Elizabeth Murdoch, who runs the company, bought Kudos, and she bought 2 other companies at the same time as us, a factual company called Dragonfly and an entertainment company called Princess. And so we all became Shine Group, and then slowly she built up from that, and she bought a big producer in America called Reveille soon after she bought us, and she bought a big company in Scandinavia called Metronome, which is a big group of companies, and then she's now set up offices in France. We've got Shine France in Paris, which is more of a reality producer. Australia, a very, very successful company in Australia.
And for you, it gave you means to develop more projects, it gave you more financial surface to...
Yeah, it did. It gives you, I always thought as Kudos we could go in places and open doors, but when you've got a big group behind you, the doors sort of swing open and you can walk straight through, and it just helps you be a bit more risky, a bit more daring, gives you a little bit more confidence that you've got this backing behind you to do things that you might not if you're still a small independent company. So it felt like that, and I mean, a lot of people feel it's the right time at some point to sort of do something. We thought that was the right time, and we're still the main people running Kudos are still there after we've been 6 years part of Shine now, and it's a good relationship.
Yeah, that's good. Okay, let's go down to the show The Hour. You have a mission in Kudos to initiate projects and to find them and to put them together. So tell us how that idea started. Obviously, yesterday in the audience, people thought this is a madman of England because the vintage, the time it's set and the look makes a think, well, this is the madman of England. So how do you find the show?
Well, I must admit that although my job at Kudos is to initiate projects, and I have initiated a number of projects, I have to honour the fact here that this was initiated by my boss, Jane Featherstone, who had an idea that she wanted to do something about broadcast news, and she'd been looking at ways to do it in a contemporary setting. And when she was talking with Abi Morgan, the writer, who I'd worked with before, and Jane had, we'd made Sex, Traffic, and Tsunami, The Aftermath. So she was a very interesting writer, Abi, and Jane was talking to her about what way into news, how's a way of doing broadcast news, and they thought it would be very exciting to explore it in the 1950s. It was when they looked at the 1950s, they discovered this was the moment when the newsreels, the very old-fashioned, conservative, unadventurous way of making news at the BBC began to change and transform, and the birth of current affairs happened with great shows like Panorama. It was really the beginning of investigative journalism at the BBC. So they thought this interesting point of change, and it happened to coincide with the Suez crisis, which the last 6 months of 1956 was a very interesting time also, because the BBC was under a huge pressure from the government to toe the party line, to basically become an instrument of government. And it was the first time that the BBC actually rebelled against the government in terms of policy. So she created a fiction that was inspired by these people, by the people who were there. It's not a docudrama. None of the same names are there. It's a fiction, but it's inspired by the real people who were around at that time.
And did you feel, because Mad Men was at the time, again, in season 2 or 3 already, did you feel that it was, the same kind of look, or you didn't?
We sort of, in a way, we were aware of Mad Men and we loved Mad Men, but we were also not revering it to the point where we were where Abi was actually thinking of Mad Men when she wrote this series. She had her own very original characters and a very original story to tell. It's much more of a spy thriller, The Hour. Mad Men was set amongst a bunch of executives in Madison Avenue. We were in the context of the 1950s, in the world of austerity, post-war world, really, which the attitude that was sort of, we were beginning to emerge from that, and it's a very different series in a way. The journalists in Britain were very keen to label it the British Mad Men because of the period, but in fact there were many things that made it very different, I think.
In France, when we want to do a show about television, the network, we go to usually don't want to interfere, don't want to do that. They don't want to talk about television. You obviously didn't meet that resistance with BBC, or did you?
There was very little resistance from the BBC. I think the great thing about the BBC is that when they're presented with something which gives them something original, variety and depth, and from a great writer, they're very author-driven, the BBC. Abi Morgan was a very acclaimed writer. She was bringing a project which had very strong, relatable characters, a very interesting context which hadn't been done before, a period and location. So actually, people can often talk about development hell at the BBC because the projects are not quite interesting or distinctive enough. But with this particular project, I think the controller of drama read it and the controller of BBC Two read it within a week, and we had a green light. It was very quick.
In a very pragmatic way, you went to see Abi Morgan, she came to you. How did it work at the very beginning of the project?
Well, as I say, Jane Featherstone, my boss, was talking to Abi Morgan about this area, and the two of them came up with this idea of this world. Then Abi would have taken that idea to the BBC. They would have commissioned, probably first of all, a treatment, and then an episode 1 script. On the basis of one script, the BBC will often greenlight a series, I don't know how. Yes.
On the one script written, they would say we go for it in writing, but also in production.
Yeah, one or two scripts, and then we get an order for the whole series. We don't write all the scripts first.
But you get an order to write the whole series and to produce it, or just to write it?
To produce it. We do one or two scripts maybe, and then we get the green light for the whole series, and then we go into production and write it as we go along. Usually.
The reason for this. The reason for this is because very established writers will not write speculatively 6 episodes, spend a whole year writing 6 episodes, and then wait for a decision. That's a waste of their life. They want to they feel that if they can show and demonstrate the quality, the characters, the dialogue, the world that they want to create, and can do that with 1 or 2 scripts, then that should be enough for the BBC to make a decision. So they don't have to write 6 scripts speculatively.
Also, I think Abi, we did a lot of research, didn't we, on the hour. Before Abi started to write, we had a full-time researcher, so preparing lots and lots of stuff. So it's a dialogue between Abi, we have a really good script editor, Derek, and Jane, and it's a real collaborative process, particularly with Abi. She needs a lot of, she likes to have a lot of dialogue and input from everybody.
For the 6 first episode, how many writers? We're going to come to you, but you were on the set afterwards, so we're going to come to you, don't worry.
Well, Ruth, can I just say, to pay tribute to Ruth, Ruth was not, she came in at an earlier point. At the point at which we had a green light, and we only had 1 script, we then start looking for a very good creative producer. And that's when I met Ruth, who'd also worked for Kudos before on another project. So at that point, there's then quite a few producers in the room. There's myself and Jane Featherstone as executive producers. There's Ruth, who's come in to work both in development and also to start getting the team together and everything.
So you were involved also in the development and the writing of the script?
We all were in it together.
So how many writers for the first season?
Just Abi.
Just one writer. So how does it work when you have one writer working on 6 shows? How long does it take? And what happens if suddenly the script number 2 or 3 or 4 is to your eyes or to the network eyes not good. And I guess it happens.
I mean, this is a challenge, and it's part of the way that things work in Britain. I think that on some long-running series, you will bring in a number of different writers to write episode 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, a writer's room and lots of different writers. We have such a strong author tradition here in the UK that Abi had never relinquished she had an idea for this 6 hours, and she really...
It was the first series as well. She's never
First
written a series. She's done mini-series. And singles, it was her first ever series. This is her first ever series.
Tell us a little more about your background, Abi Morgan. Tell us a little bit about her.
Well, she started writing in theatre. She came she started first of all writing for new writing theatre companies, and then she was spotted because her writing was very original and fresh. And I think her first television drama was for BBC Two. It was called Murder, and it was starred Julie Walters, and it was a very provocative and surprising way into telling a murder story, all from different points of view. On the strength of that, I think I approached her for Sex Traffic, which was a drama we had in development with Channel 4. This is nearly 10 years ago now, and that project was...
it's a project started in the Eastern countries, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
A mini-series, 2 episodes. I think it was shown on Canal Plus.
It was shown in France, I think, on M6 one.
Yes.
It was really good.
And although, I say to myself, that project, it won 20 international awards and 8 BAFTAs, and I think her writing on it was extraordinary, and she therefore became, quite quickly, one of the hottest writers in the country, and we were lucky then to get her to write Tsunami, The Aftermath, which was an even bigger production. It was a co-production with HBO, starred Tim Roth and Toni Collette, and dealt with the aftermath of the tsunami in Thailand. And really, she has written for a couple of things for other production companies, but most of her work has actually been for Kudos in the last 4 or 5 years.
Is it a paradox for you as a producer that you want your series to go fast in development and production, to have one writer doing the 6 episodes? Because I guess the process is long, because writing is not a fast medium.
No, and actually it does present some very real problems for production. The hardest thing is getting scripts late, because you can't prepare, and it is an ongoing problem when you have something that's so authored.
Because you mean that prep has started before the whole thing was written. So which means when you deliver a script to the network, they say, okay, we're going to production, you already said a shooting date, correct?
Often started shooting the episode and we haven't finished the script sometimes.
Yeah,
it's very interesting for us. I don't know if it's interesting. How do you deal with that? Because in France, or I know in America, when a series is going on, the trend of producers to get, let's hire a bunch of writers who move fast, which doesn't work all the time. But in this case, were you tempted to propose her a co-writer to go faster, or
we did
refuse?
for series 2, understanding she's phenomenally energetic, Abi, and she will write to a deadline, and she can turn a script around very quickly. She was also writing and working on at the same time the Margaret Thatcher film, The Iron Lady. She was writing Shame, Steve McQueen. She was writing Birdsong, adaptation of a Sebastian Faulks novel for BBC Two. And she had writing a drama about Dickens with Ray Fiennes. She had 6 projects on at the same time as she was doing the
She had a play as well.
And 2 plays. Nobody could quite believe how she managed to do it, actually. It was an extraordinary achievement.
Many people in the apartments.
Yeah. And she would rewrite and rewrite. She always was capable of doing another draft of the script, because she...
So I guess on the hour, on the first season, one writer, does it happen that you are prepping the shooting already, or you're shooting already, and Abi is doing number 3 or 4? It happened at one point that, for some reason, or she's extremely talented and she can please everyone, Or does it happen sometime, well, one script doesn't work at all, and the network is a problem, and you have a problem, and you go back to her? Did it happen? Because it looks so wonderful from here.
The network has the network feeds back. BBC Two, we have a commissioning editor, and she feeds back on every script that we send her. But sometimes we'll take it to 2 or 3 drafts before we send it to that commissioning editor, because the way that Abi works, she evolves the story by doing successive drafts and then getting. She's very collaborative, so she enjoys having meetings in which we suggest what's working, what's not working. She listens, she goes back, she has other ideas, and it's a very evolving process. And at the point at which we feel it's ready to send to the BBC, we send it, then we have their notes to deal with. But what Abi says always in these in interviews about this, if she was here, she would say this again, is she found it very creative, because she could walk through the set where we were filming in Crouch End, in a town hall in Crouch End in North London, and she could literally walk through a scene because they were shooting in a corridor, going to a script meeting at the back of the room, and as she was literally, they would be rehearsing a scene which they were about to shoot, and she could be in fact throwing ideas in at that very moment into the
So she wouldn't be for you a showrunner. You would be the showrunner, right? But she would be involved into the production?
Yeah, I wouldn't say it's a showrunner situation in quite the same way as it would be with David Chase with Sopranos or Matthew Weiner with Mad Men. We have a slightly different system. It's not a showrunner. She's an executive producer on the project, and she's involved in choosing the director and everything else, along with us. But it's not. I think the showrunner system in America is more that person is absolutely the head of the top of the pile, and this is a much more democratic.
We as Kudos present ourselves as non-writing showrunners as a production company. That's what we say. We don't write the scripts, but we provide that showrunning capability, everything else other than actually writing the scripts. And so we will always work very collaboratively with our writers, but we don't have a. There are occasions in the UK where you have a showrunner system. Usually in Doctor Who is run pretty much on a showrunner type basis, but most series aren't. Most series in the UK have a lead writer or team of writers, but if the writing is a pair, but usually a lead writer who will write the pilot episode, maybe the second episode, and then we normally, at the hour apart, we normally do bring in maybe 2 or 3 other writers to write an episode of the series. So the lead writer normally writes the first 2, maybe the last 2 in an 8-episode series, and then other people will write the middle ones. And the lead writer will often overwrite some of those episodes if it's not quite working, which don't talk about what happened on series 2, where we did have, on series 2 of the hour, we did have a couple of other writers. Maybe worth saying something about that.
When you say she's involved in choosing the director and the casting, does that mean she's present at meetings where you talk about this? Is she involved in casting too?
Yes, I mean, on series 1, Koki Gebrich was our lead director. She did the first 2 episodes. So the process with casting was that we worked with a wonderful casting director called Jill Trevelek, who I've worked with on a number of occasions, and Koki had as well. We would present ideas of people we thought we'd like to cast to everybody else at Kudos. So kind of lists go around.
The writer.
Yes, yeah, very much so. But Abi was very much part of those decisions. Yeah.
So it could happen that Abi says for some reason, well, I don't want that director because so and so and so, and you would listen to her.
Yes, we would listen to her.
Or we'd argue the case. And that.
But she's part of this process, and she's part of the meetings. Is she part of the editing process too? I mean, she comes to the editing room sometime and sees the first cut, or
she comes and sees every cut that she wants to see. Apart from if she's got a deadline with another project, which is occasionally happens, she's normally at every edit meeting, at every viewing of the show. Yeah.
And she can, give notes and such things. So you want her input into the editing and into what it's about.
Yeah, we welcome her input and we are open to that. And she gets the rushes every day. So if she's not on set, because she's writing, she's still
she
getting...
get the rushes every day
Yeah.
in her place. You deliver every day the rushes to your place so she can watch and call you.
No, she gets her own copy.
Yeah, I mean,
To her own
it was
house,
very
yeah.
interesting on episode, on this first series. It was Abi's first time, I think, of being a kind of more hands-on executive producer. And I remember the first 6 days of filming, every single morning, I got about 5-page email from Abi telling us, you know, what was wrong, what we were missing, you know, what the director wasn't doing. Because it was her first experience of getting the rushes, and you know, Abi's writing is really detailed. If you look at a first script, or any of her scripts, but the first script in particular, episode 1 of the first series, I mean, she writes paragraphs of stage directions, and that's very daunting. You know, it's very daunting for the director because we have 11 days to shoot 1 hour. And it's impossible to get every detail. You know, Abi would write, you know, and Belle puts the glass down, she takes the cigarette, she looks at that character, she looks at that character, she looks at this. You know, it's impossible for a director to capture every detail.
I don't know of any writer who does texture as well as Abi. I mean, to the extent that we knew that in Lime Grove Studios, which is where the broadcast news was being made, that was also a place where all the drama was being made as well in 1956. So there would often be people wandering around the corridors dressed in different costumes for costume drama. So rather than leaving that to the producer and the costume designer to come up with, she would say Belle and Hector walk down the corridor passing 6 monks dressed in, or 7 people dressed in medieval costume, or 8 Roman centurions. She would literally write who all the people, the extras essentially, the supporting artists. And then it was up to whether or not we had the budget to costume 8 people just for a 1-second moment of being passed in the corridor. But she just wanted to create that sense of texture.
So when you say in the morning you get 5-page email from Abi about notes, what's wrong, what's right, what do you do with the stages? You just dump them, or you go through a process of... Because in France, probably, any production company would just dump them or don't open the email because it's very, you know, I guess I'm right. It's very, there's a wall often between the production process and the writer. Some cases, no, but in the mainstream. And what would you do with this 5-page every morning?
As I say, I mean, actually, just to be fair to Abi, this really didn't continue. It was just the first week because it was her first experience of getting rushes. And not seeing a kind of cut version much further down the line, and she soon stopped sending 5 pages, just half a page.
I would also just say here, what was interesting is that she created she talks about films like His Girl Friday. She loved this rapid repartee, it's a French word, I guess, yeah, in the dialogue, this sense of dynamism and a sort of combative wit in the dialogue. And when you're watching rushes, of course, and you haven't assembled it or cut it together or fine-cut it, these feel like quite long scenes. When you only have one side of you're shooting from one setup, you can't quite create the sense of energy and dynamism. And so she was looking at it and thinking, where is the spirit, the flavour, the speed, the pace? And pace was one of the things that she was worried about. But of course, pace comes often through the edit. And when she started seeing assemblage, she could see that was you know.
But in answer to what you said, you know, how do you deal with it? I mean, I think on every job it's different. With every writer, with every director, you have to work in different ways. And Koki didn't want to see any of Abi's notes at all. And she would say to me, you know, Ruth, just tell me the important bits, tell me what I'm missing. And so it was really up to us to interpret those notes and think, has she got a point? Is there something that's at the heart of all her anxieties that perhaps we're missing, that I need to pass on to the director?
Well, I guess on the first season, out of how many pages she wrote, there's a few things you took and brought to the director and then to the show.
Exactly.
So she did have input into some aspect of the show in production.
Absolutely. And casting even, I mean, what was wonderful was we shot everything pretty much, apart from our location locations that we used in one building, and it's a wonderful big building that exists and is completely empty now. So we were able to build the set that they use in the show, the hour set. We were able to use the offices, the corridors, the toilets. You might have noticed in the episode you saw last night, there's 2 toilet scenes. Whenever we run out of money on the hour, I ask Abi, please write a scene in the toilet. We've got lots of toilets in the building we still haven't used. And they're all kind of 1950s, so that was great. But the other thing was we edited in this building, and we were able to prep in the building, and Abi was writing in the building. She has an office.
She's not working at home, she's working on set.
She worked at home, but often in the building. So
which means you provide her an office in the building where she can come whenever she wants to write.
Yeah, it's this massive building, a town hall that housed hundreds of people, in the olden days. So we were able to, everybody could have office space. It meant her and the script editor could work together. It meant that actors could talk to Abi at any time. Sometimes they'd be rehearsing a scene and, Ben or Romola or Dominic would say, I don't really understand this. And we'd say, oh, let's go and get Abi. And sometimes she'd rewrite on the spot, so it's fantastic.
Is she, being so precise about details, do you think she's a writer that would like to direct, or she's really a writer?
I know she's, I think she says about herself that she's a bit of a control freak, so sometimes she likes the idea of directing, but in her heart I think she feels she'd be a terrible director, so she probably won't take that risk.
Can we talk about numbers? Just to start with the writer, then we go to the cost of the show. What is an English writer like Abi making on a show like this on a script basis? And do you have in England some reruns, royalties, or?
Well, we can't tell you confidential what she specifically got paid, but the way it works in the UK is a junior writer of an hour of television will get the lowest levels around about £12,000, and the highest levels probably about £30,000 for one script, for one 1 hour 60-minute script. And then, as part of the union guild agreement that we have with the Writers Guild in the UK, they get the same amount of money again on the first day of shooting of that script. So if they got £20,000 to write the script, they get another £20,000. And that's an advance against their share of royalties. So they get repeat fees, which depends on when it's repeated. They get a share of sales from all the international sales, DVD, etc., etc. And usually that advance that they get on the first day of photography is usually, most times, unless the show is a massive hit, that's probably all they ever get. But if you have a big international hit, like The Hour, which is all very well, Abi will get royalties, or get on top of all of that money.
And being so involved in the production process and having an office, there's a detail, but is she paid on a monthly basis, or?
No, we pay on the delivery of different stages. So she gets 50% when you start writing the script, 25% when you deliver the first draft, and then the final 25% when you deliver the last draft before you shoot.
It's also
50 when you sign, 25 delivers, and 25 when it's
accepted. When it's
It's
accepted.
pretty big, to 50%.
Yes.
If you sign the contract, it's pretty big. Is it standard in England?
Yes, all standardised with the union, sort of union arrangement. Yeah.
And there's also executive producer fees as well.
I don't know what you get
10% when you start.
Yeah, it's very front-loaded. It's very front-loaded. It is a bit ridiculous.
There's also executive producer fees because
She gets loads of producer fees. She does as a senior writer.
because she's actually working in that capacity, and she's actually involved in meetings, choosing the director with us and everything. So she's also paid an extra fee for that.
And we also give away, depending on who the writer is, depending on how experienced they are, who they are, we give away share of the profit of the show and things like that. So it's a very much a collaboration with our writers. The production companies, drama production companies, are purely writer-led. We're producers, but without the writers, we don't have anything. So they are our main focus. Our main relationships are with the writers, and we also have a very big and powerful agent community. I don't know what it's like in France, but we have very big, powerful agents that control their writers and the directors. and you have to get through them to get to the writers, and obviously we have our own relationships, but we don't know all the writers, and sometimes want to work with a new writer, and you have to go through the agent and establish that relationship with the agent.
I think that the team was very strong and solid with the writer, with you. What is the involvement of the network in all this process? It seems like really far away.
They're irrelevant, yeah, we don't need a network. They just pay money. No, I'm joking.
You just send a check at the end of the month.
The network they will come, they will read the scripts when we send them the scripts, they will either feedback notes on the telephone or in emails, or we have meetings sometimes. They will come to the read-through, and they will give even more notes sometimes about when they've heard the script.
They come on the read-through, the actors?
The actors, all the BBC executives, the controller of drama at the BBC will come to the read-through, and there'll be
one per show, or different ones after reruns?
No, normally we just read the first 2 scripts, not the rest.
We normally shoot in blocks of 2 episodes. So in a series, we'll normally do 6 episodes, 3 blocks of 2 at a time. And one director will do 2 episodes, another director will do his next 2, and then another director the last 2.
So on this read-through, you have the network, the writer, so a bunch of people, and all the main actors.
Yeah.
So
and all the heads
process, I guess.
All the heads of department are there as well. All the heads of department.
Quite a scary day for everybody there.
Yeah.
And each of the heads of departments will have a meeting with the broadcaster to just talk them through their ideas of costumes for the set. We call it a tone meeting. It's just to make sure that everybody's on the same page and that the broadcaster isn't going to get a big shock when the rushes arrive.
And you have the same people around this tone meeting, like the network providers, the actors, I guess, the director,
not the actors, no. But it's just that thing of, not finding, broadcaster not finding that the director decided to shoot everything in black and white.
I mean, obviously on that show, an art direction, visual in photography, there's obviously, so do you have an art director, or is it your job?
Yeah. No, we have a production designer. I mean, we were very, very kind of lucky on the hour, because our production designer had just, she'd just done The King's Speech. She was a designer that had worked with Mike Lee a lot, done big feature films, Oscar nominated, so we were really
Which means there's a lot of exchange in talents between movie and television in England, right?
There is mostly, but...
Do you have a big distinction between the 2, big war, or not really?
I would say that there are certain... It depends on the attitude of the creative person. Some people feel that they make that move from TV to film, and they don't want to come back. They've now done Harry Potter, and therefore they will not work in TV again. They're a feature film designer. Other people will very happily move between the 2 and are only interested in the quality of the project and whether it interests them. Eve Stewart is in the latter. She's done Vera Drake, Topsy Turvy, all these massive films, and just The King's Speech, for which she was Oscar nominated, and she was very happy to do The Hour.
What is the cost of the show itself, the whole show, per episode or for the whole series?
It's I remember about 1.1 million euros per hour.
1.1?
1.1, yeah.
Million euros.
Yeah.
For the budget for the whole episode, yeah. You're asking?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And new financement is coming mainly from BBC One?
Well, they work on a tariff, what they call a tariff basis, so they'll give you up... They range, their investment normally on a primetime drama ranges anywhere from £700,000 to £900,000, and you negotiate as much as you can get, really, and then the rest of it is up to you as a producer to find. So, they gave us the middle of that range, really, and then we had to find the rest of the money.
And you told me you have a co-production with the States.
BBC America, yeah, BBC America. So,
was this found through BBC England, or you?
No, it's nothing to do with it. It's a separate.
Also, you have to go see themselves.
Yeah, you go see themselves, and we've done a few things with them. So, there's quite a lot of opportunity to co-produce. It's really like a pre-sale, to be honest with you. It's they pay some money, they get some involvement. It's not it's definitely not a 50-50 sort of relationship. They're really interested in the casting for them. Dominic West, we'd already cast Dominic West before we got BBC America. Have we cast him at that point? I think we said to them we were in the process of casting Dominic West. For them, that was a very important piece of casting because he was in The Wire on HBO, and it was a big show. You know.
When you co-produce with the States, do you have to be careful about the English accent being not too present in the series?
They have an issue about that, and they do. They would like us not to cast people with very strong accents. It so happens on The Hour we didn't have that anyway, but it isn't. They can't tell you no, but they would prefer it for us not to cast people with very strong regional accents because the American audience sometimes can't understand what they're saying. But on the show, it wasn't an issue. All of them, you know, this wasn't a particular issue. We've had other shows we've done with them where they have been a problem. They couldn't understand what the actors were saying.
And I heard sometimes they redub in their own English, an English show because it's too Cockney accent or.
Well, they did. Derek did a show called Occupation, which was I think it was on here as well in France, and we have very strong regional accents from Liverpool, Manchester, and Northern Ireland, and even I couldn't understand some of the accents. It was so strong. In America, they subtitled it in English, you know, which was. But that's a very extreme example. They sort of asked us, "Do you mind?" And we said, "Well, no. If you can't understand what they're saying, that's what you've got to do." They didn't redub the voices; they just subtitled it, I think.
Is a show like this selling a lot abroad? I mean,
This one. Yeah, it's done. You know, when you're developing a drama. When I was looking at this and saying, well, we've got this much money from the BBC, we need to find this much money, I was quite worried. I thought, well, it is a very British piece. It's about a period of British history. It's about the BBC. You know, is that going to be something that's going to sell, you know, massively around the world? And you don't know. And it's actually turned out in the end because I think the quality of everything, the casting, the writing, the production value, the casting, it's sold as a piece of quality television really, really well. And it's...
the countries that it's sold to.
I've actually got it on my BlackBerry.
I think it's about 85 countries have bought it. About 85 countries, we think.
Which is pretty big.
It's a lot, yeah. And interestingly, we did a deal with Netflix, which is the video on demand subscription video on demand service, which we've never done before. And you know, they bought a number of territories in one go. And they did a really good deal with us, and that was a very interesting new way of financing drama that didn't exist 3 years ago. You know, so long may it continue.
To end this debate, can you tell us about one of the projects you're working on for the future? I know you bought the rights of Real Humans that we watched yesterday. I'd like to ask, you know, why do you want to do the remake when the original series is so good? I mean, the standards are really high. So, what's your goal on this?
It's a good question. We don't do a lot of remakes, actually. It just so happens at the moment we did Law and Order. We remade Law and Order for the UK, but that was about 5 years ago when we first started doing that. And since then, we are an original drama producer. I got hold of a copy of Real Humans from SVT, and we were just blown away by it. We thought it was one of the best things we've ever seen in our office, and we showed it around, and this is amazing. We've got to try and they were looking for a partner to do a format version with, and it was a competitive situation, and we just went for it, and luckily they chose us. The Matador, Henrik and Lars, chose us to be their partners, which is great, and we're developing that with the BBC at the moment.
The idea for you, just a silly question, but to bring some talents from Sweden to do the same that they did out there, or you're going to redo everything? I mean, well, having a new director in the photo, I mean, you know,
I think we've had to change bits of the story. We've cut down the number of story strands. It's a work in progress. It's not been greenlit yet. I mean, Henrik and Lars are co-producers with us, and so we have a lot of dialogue with them. We send them the scripts, and they comment on the scripts. So it's a real collaboration. But the BBC One audience the BBC One don't normally do sci-fi. It's a different thing for them. So we've had to try and bring it more into the domestic than probably the original Swedish version. But we've kept the absolute core essence, and most of the characters are all in there. But we just had to change it, and actually something like that, you know, it's such a great world. Actually, our writers are really keen on this sort of genre, and they've really played around with it a little bit, and I think the Matador guys really like it as well. They've read it and they like it.
So you have seen the 10 episodes?
We've seen, I've seen about 6, I haven't seen all 10, but we have all 10.
You're lucky, we just have seen 1.
No, I know.
We want to see more.
I know, it's a great show. But we don't, we will do things like that at Kudos when it's exceptional. I mean, you can all watch that and go, gosh, that's amazing. And any producer would want to get their hands on that. So for those sorts of things, the really exceptional pieces, we will try and get them if we can. It's very competitive at the moment, shows like Homeland, if you've seen Homeland, you try and get something like that. There are these great pieces of drama being made outside of the UK and America, and it's a really buoyant market to try and get hold of these things. The Americans are after everything. Israel's a hot topic at the moment. Scandinavia is obviously hugely inventive in drama, and everyone's after all of their stuff. And the things that you're showing here, Lilyhammer and The Bridge, these are exceptional. It's actually an exceptional slate of dramas that are being shown here.
And going back on the hour, you've shot season 2, right?
Season 2, yeah.
Is it completed?
Which
And
is
are
still
you going on
finishing,
season 3 in writing?
This depends. It always depends on how shows are received. But obviously the BBC love the show, but it won't go out till the end of the year. So there's normally a little bit of a wait until.
But would they commission the writing just to be in advance? Or would they wait the first running or the second running of the episode just to commission the
I
writing?
think there's always a possibility that they might give you a commission to get the first script going, but ultimately they won't commit to making the show until it goes out, and see how the ratings are and how
They
it's
decide on episode 1 or 2 or 3 or at the end of the showing?
Sorry.
They would decide
normally
on
wait.
episode 1 or 2 and what's on the air? Or
They actually recommissioned the hour about a week. I think only 1 episode had gone out, and they committed to series 2 after episode 1 gone out. So that was
Normally the trigger point for recommission is triggered by the actors' options. So you have options to bring the actors back, and normally that's the date you work to. So you finish shooting, you set a date in the future where they tell you they're going to broadcast it by then, and then that's the date, because if you don't exercise the options, the actors don't have to do it. But what sometimes happens is they say it's going to go out on this date, and then they change their minds and put it out at a later date, and then you have all sorts of problems then.
I mean, obviously, if you don't pick up the options in time, then the options lapse, and I know this is very obvious, but it's just worth saying, then the agents have huge advantage, because they know that you have your key actors, you need them, and they can essentially negotiate much higher fees. The options keep it at what you've decided at the beginning.
Est-ce qu'il y a des questions dans la salle? Plein. Sylvie?
Yes, I have several questions. Sorry for the accent. First, what was the first element you gave to the BBC to convince them to do the show? Was it an oral pitch or a script?
Well, it was
The very first element.
The very first element was probably a concept of the show, followed by a 2-page description of what the show could be.
Without the story, characters, just the show, the concept.
Yeah, there was some of the characters, an idea of who the characters might be, but not anything, something to enable them to commission a script. You want to just tantalise them a little bit with the world, the characters, the ideas, without going into a detailed plot. I think that people don't, in the UK, they don't want to receive a Bible of 60 pages with everything laid out. They want to be involved in the creative process, in the development process. So,
would they commit financially on these 2 pages, or they would say, we're interested, go further?
yes, it's all
It's
been
more a script,
Hmm?
so the 2 pages might trigger, right, we'll pay for a script now.
Also, they would
Yeah,
financially commit
the financial give it to a script.
It's just 3 pages.
1 page, 2 page, maybe it's a verbal pitch. And with someone like Abi, they'll go, yes, whatever, write a script, because they know if they don't, somebody else will. And but for most writers, it can be anything from a verbal pitch, a 1 page, 2 page, 3 page idea, and then, they might go to a treatment. They might say, they're not sure, can you write a treatment, which will be like a 10 page description of what the project would be, and they might ask you to write out maybe a storyline of the first episode before, and then they'll go from that stage to a script. With someone like Abi, they're quite happy just to go straight to script.
What are the different stages of writing? Treatment and script, and different versions of a script, or
Yeah, the treatment. Sometimes an outline, which is like maybe just half a page. Maybe then a treatment, which is 2 or 3 pages. This is, if the writer is less established than Abi, you go through this. Then the treatment, then maybe a meeting with the BBC about the with the commissioning editor of the BBC about.
It's the same for all the broadcasters. This applies to all of the UK broadcasters. The same process.
You go in with the writer, the producer and the writer go in and say, this is why it's brilliant and exciting, and you make the pitch, you make your argument as persuasive as possible, and then hopefully they commission a script. And then you go through the whole process again where you have a script and you want, the best thing that can happen is that they love the script, they adore it, and they want to make the series. That happens sometimes, but more often they have some notes which you have to then deal with and absorb these notes, and then you show it to them again, and you go through the process until they hopefully greenlight it, or if it doesn't work out, if they can't quite be confident enough, then obviously they say no at the end of that process. Nothing is assumed that it's going to be successful, and we have lots of developments that are quite struggle after, and then they work out in the end, and some of them, we don't get half the brain.
How many would say in all the development you have would just at one moment we stop at the network, and how many you screw to the end of the production? Out of 10.
Out of 10, how many get made and how many?
2, 3,
2 or 3 get made.
out of 10. We've probably got about 25 to 30 projects on our development slate at the moment.
And to answer the question of
Last
Sylvie,
question, how has it been broadcasted? Once a week?
Yeah, once a week, over 6
Once a week.
weeks. Yeah, that's exactly right. Yeah.
one question to add to Sylvie's, do you go in the script development through the document we call scene by scene, or no, you treatment to dialogue directly?
In the hour, it was treatment to dialogue. Abi wouldn't. Well, sometimes, as the plot got more complicated, she might for herself. We might all go through a kind of, okay, what's going to happen next? What's going to happen next? Try and keep her sort of on track. So, yeah, to help her.
Thank you.
Thanks. When you say the first script is commissioned, does the channel co-finance it? Are there rules that they co-finance 50%?
They pay for it all.
They pay for all.
Yeah, we're in a very lucky position in the UK. So the BBC and Channel 4 will fully fund the script. They'll pay some of our costs, overhead costs, some other fees, and then if they don't commission it, they give the project back to us. And if we set it up somewhere else, we have to pay them their money back, whatever they paid to us in the first place.
Which means development actually doesn't cost you anything.
Pardon?
Development doesn't cost you anything.
Not with BBC or Channel 4. ITV will pay a lump sum. They'll give you £10,000 usually towards your development costs. Sky will fully fund the development if they want to. So it is quite good in that
The
sense.
trend is more in England that the network, BBC or private, will finance, in most cases, everything, or the whole development, 100% plus some of a
Well,
cost, right?
it's the script, isn't it?
It's really a script plus a small charge for Derek's time, for our overheads, research, maybe some legal fees, things like that. So if the script costs £18,000, you might charge £25,000 in total. They'll fully pay for that, and then they have an option over, effectively an option over the script until they decide whether they want to move forward with it. And if they don't want to move forward with it, they give you the rights back, and you can take it somewhere else. But sometimes we pay for. Sometimes we just do it ourselves. Sometimes we get a writer to say, let's just get a script written, and then we'll decide where to take it. So there are different ways of doing it. Sometimes I think our feeling is it's better to go to the broadcaster first to make sure they're interested. But we do sometimes get a really great writer, a new writer maybe, and think this is brilliant. Let's just commission the writer script and then decide who we want to take it to, so we can control it a bit better. And it just depends on the situation.
This is BBC, ITV. You said £10,000. pounds?
They will contribute £10,000 towards the development. That's their process. Channel 4 will be the same as the BBC, and Sky the same as BBC. They will fully fund it. I suspect they'll start to stop doing that soon. They'll start to not pay. They used to pay for everything, and I think they're going to start trying to say, well, we're going to give you this, I think, but hopefully not. But I think that's going to be
the fact that BBC would finance 7% of the development doesn't seem to diminish your role as a producer at all.
No, they don't have time to develop their own. You know, they have an in-house drama department which develops drama that's owned by the BBC, but they also have an obligation to commission at least 25% of all drama from independent production companies. And in actual fact, in drama, I think it's more like about 40% of all dramas on the BBC are made by independent producers. So we're always above the 25% minimum, and that's partly because we're quicker, we're a bit more nimble, we have good relationships with writers, and we do make a lot of the series drama is actually contemporary series drama is made by independent production companies. BBC are really good at doing the longer running series, the soaps, and they also do really good costume drama. They do contemporary stuff, but I think recently they've tried to catch up with the independent community on that. Very
competitive market, and we are competing all the time. The independent sector is competing with the in-house sector to try to get the commissions, and the channel controller and the controller of drama have to create as much as possible a level playing field and say we want to get the best dramas. We don't care where they come from. We don't care whether they come from in-house or the independents. We just want to make the right decisions. There might be 20 dramas competing for every slot that they've got.
Do you have an idea of how many projects they receive to do, like you said, 17 new shows last year? Do you have any idea?
No, they won't tell us that information. I think I expect it's a lot. And I wouldn't know the number, but they have different ways into the BBC. They have there's about 3 or 4 different commissioning editors. One's in Scotland, one's in Wales, a couple in London, and you can go to one of those commissioning editors and say we want to do this, and they might go, no, I don't like it. You can then go somewhere else and try Scotland and say, well, how about that? And they might go, oh yeah, we really like it. But there still is one head of drama, and he's the one that will make the decisions on which shows go forward to the channels to be commissioned. And ITV is a much smaller team. The good thing about the UK, I think, is that they don't interfere a huge amount. They add value at the right time, don't they? And there's only 4 buyers, 4 real key people that we have to deal with. And
would you qualify your relationship with the networks in England good in general, like a trust relationship?
Yeah, very, very much so. Personal relationships, really important.
We had the same executive producer from the BBC on Series 1 and Series 2. So by the time you get to Series 2, there is a shorthand. You can just pick up the phone and go doing this, or, and get a very quick answer.
But this particular person also, the same woman, Lucy Richer, also worked when she was at Channel 4 before she went to the BBC. She worked on Sex Traffic with me and Abi, and then she also worked at Kudos. She also worked when she was at BBC 2 on Tsunami. So she has a 10-year relationship with the writer as well, so she understands the process of working with Abi. So that's also very helpful history.
Oui, d'autres questions.
Bonjour, quel est le coût de fabrication d'une saison de 6 épisodes?
Ça a été dit tout à l'heure, c'est 1,1 million en euros par épisode.
Combien?
1,1 million en euros par épisode.
Yes, it's a question to Ruth. You are a creative producer. Where do you come from? Writing or producing?
Well, actually, I started as an actress, I went to drama school and worked in theatre and TV, and I got an opportunity to work on the other side of the camera, but in feature films. So my background, I worked in television, but I've also worked on independent feature films. So.
She won an Oscar, by the way, for a short film, didn't you? She didn't want to say that.
And the production designer, where does he come from? You are? No.
Production
You have a
designer.
production designer.
Yes, we talked about her.
Yeah.
She's Eve Stewart, who was designer on The King's Speech, all these films from Mike Leigh. She is a very experienced film and TV designer.
Yes, but coming from
She's done feature films and television as well.
Thank you very much.
I have a question about the chain of decisions in the channels. Would it be possible for you to work on a series and write the scripts, be commissioned, and then when you stop working, you have your 6 scripts finished, then somebody inside BBC or ITV or whatever wakes up and says, oh no, we won't do sci-fi, for example, and then everything stops. This is something which happens in France quite often, and it's really boring.
I think that would be impossible to happen because I have never worked on a TV production where I was just about to start filming and I've got all my scripts. That is so.
But you say that,
I mean,
we've got 2 shows.
I know you have.
2
And
shows
why
a
aren't
month.
I on it?
The first time ever where we've had all 6 scripts before we start shooting. That's never happened before. We've got 2 at the moment, unbelievably lucky. One of them just took a very long time to develop, and the other one, the writer was incredibly quick, and we got a very quick decision. He wrote all 6 scripts.
So there's really just one person who has the power to say yes or no.
Once you
they
green
stick to
lit,
it?
once we've got the green light, they won't revoke the green light. Even if, it's a reputation really. They wouldn't want to mess us about, the actors, the writers. If we've committed and hired, they wouldn't do it. I mean, I can't. The only reason it may happen is the finance falls apart. So if they give you money and you can't raise the rest of the money and something like that happens, they might say, we might as producers say, we can't do it, we can't find the rest of the money. But if they've greenlit it and we're in production and we hired Ruth to start, blah, 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 and they've given us a decision, no, they wouldn't back up.
The big difference, and is it because you have a great position being in this company, is that the network will be ready to commission the production with only 1 or 2 scripts? Is this a common thing in England? Because in France, I'm right or wrong, but the network will commission production once they have the whole 6 script finished, and then say, will it go or not into production? Correct. So is it common in England that they would commission at 1 or 2 scripts, or is it because it's you?
That's the normal position is 1 or 2 scripts and the green light. We
Even
don't.
if it's a young company starting.
Yeah. I mean, they have to have the confidence that the production company and the writer can deliver what they said they're going to deliver. So the number of drama producers, the number of production companies making drama in the UK isn't massive. There's probably 10 companies in total that do most of the drama, and I would say 4 of the top companies make 80% of it. So it's a very, very small number because it's very risky. They're going to give you £10 million or £6 million. They've got to trust that you can actually deliver the show at the end of the day. And so it's really on a reputation, on relationships, and they want to know that if something goes wrong, you've got money to bail yourself out. So, but they, as Derek said, most writers won't write 6 scripts unless it's greenlit. They just won't commit to it.
So the situation.
Let's say you are an unknown company and you're starting in England. You would have to build a relationship for them to commission at least 2 scripts. So would it take more time to do this, or
But to
build this relationship with the network?
to write 2 scripts?
No. To build that relationship of trust with the network, so they would say only with 2 scripts.
Well, if they don't trust you, they might ask you to partner with a bigger company. So they might ask you to, if you're a small one-man band company who's got a really good idea with a good writer, they might say, go and talk to Kudos or Company Pictures or whatever. There's another company, and then they'll ask us to help them and oversee it. And sometimes we do that.
Yes, which means they give this decision on 2 scripts also because they know the company and they have built this relationship of work for many years.
You've got to have done something for them to commission you to make a drama. You've got to have a track record. They won't give a start-up company. They may do a single, or they may do something small on one of the smaller channels, but they won't give you a 9 o'clock primetime show if you haven't got a reputation. Yeah, but look, Ruth hasn't got her own company, but if she set up her own company, they would trust Ruth as a one-man band to do it.
But I think the landscape of television commissioning has changed massively, in the years that I've been in it, because when I started the birth of Channel 4 films, and you could, as a small independent producer, get a commission. You can't anymore. If I had a brilliant idea, I would probably take my idea to Kudos and say, will you develop that idea with me? I wouldn't do it as a single lone producer.
They're much more risk averse.
The situation, I think we're presenting it as though it's a perfect situation. It's not always perfect, and we have frustrations, and there's certainly one which I would say, which is that sometimes commissioners say, on the basis of one script, we want to green light it, when can you deliver it by? We need it by October or something. And the commissioners have not worked in production, so they don't understand what is needed to set up something as big as that particular show. So, and then you say, well, we can't deliver it by, it's quite very difficult to deliver it by October, and they say, well, you have to, otherwise we can't, because we need it for this slot. And that's when pressure is put on us, which can sometimes not be particularly healthy, because the script process, the casting, the setting is bizarre. Not always in London, often finding complex locations, whatever. Delivering to a schedule, and then sometimes this happens also. You deliver it, you work incredibly hard, huge stresses to deliver it for October, and then they say, well, actually, we're putting another show there. We don't need it till next April. And you've just literally. That's happened quite a few times.
You have a nervous breakdown.
They don't
Russians doing it, and then they say, oh, actually, it's fine.
And this is a time when you've worked 12 to 11 days a fortnight, or you've worked all the Saturdays and Sundays. You've been working at, and then it's an artificial deadline, in fact.
Okay, I think we're going to have to cut it here. Plus de questions dans la salle, visiblement. Non, c'est bon. No. Well, thank you for sharing all this. It was actually interesting. Thank you very much.